Welcome everybody. Welcome to episode. I always forget what it is. I want to say it's 11, but it might not be 11. Nobody knows. Is it 11? Okay, I nailed it. Welcome to episode 11 of Legacy Meet Devs. Yeah, we'll go. Yep. Yeah, we are grinding. We're sticking with it. We missed, I believe, 2 weeks, but the last 2 weeks have been very hectic. Lots of work behind the scenes. Um, but we're here to talk about a lot of that. And we got Chris once again. We have some our favorite things, some presentations, some PowerPoint presentations, some slides prepared. And as always, we'll take questions from the chat. I'll take questions at random because lately we've been having like too many people. We can't invite everyone on stage, so we'll randomize it. Okay. So if you have a question, you can raise your hand, and I'll drag you on stage once the presentation is done. So Chris, you can take it away. How's it going?
What we're trying to achieve. Is the core loops working out? The game has many different core loops in it, right? Like the core combat loop, when you're fighting a player in the open world, or whether it's, um, in arena, which we've been kind of playtesting. Uh, uh, how does the adventure loop work out? Like when you queue into a session, and like how's that experience? Is it fun? Is it engaging? Is it interesting, etc.? And then the vendor leveling. How's the vendor leveling going? Campaign, the campaign quest that we have. So that was another thing that we had questions for this early access. How retentive is the game? Retention is by far probably the most important metric for us and for any kind of live service game. Our players coming back each day and that sort of thing. And if they are falling off, why are they falling off? And then the other last question is like, who are our players? There's a lot of assumptions that I had who our player would be, and it's been a little bit different than what I expected, which is awesome, and fun to see. So, anyways, these are all like kind of the main questions that we had. And so far, we just have a month. It's just like a little over 30 days since the game has come out. But what we've kind of learned so far is that, and we kind of knew this was the case also in through the pre-alphas, but we do know the game is fun. It's not a game for everybody. It's not supposed to be a game for everybody, but I think for those players that it is for, it's a really fun and engaging game, unlike anything else that we could find else on the market. So that's a relief. It's really hard to make a good game. It's really hard to make a game for a new studio with a new team, and so we're really happy about that. We do know the game needs more content. By far, the most number one feedback that we get for the game is that it needs more content, and so that is what we're all working on right now, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But we talk about this each Meet the Devs. And then the second thing is that the game needs a bit better new player experience. Something that we added to the game right before early access release is Goldbrook, which is like a little tutorial area to kind of teach. It's like a little safe space that you could learn the game in if you want, some of the combat system and stuff like that. So that has been somewhat successful. It was one of the things that we did pivot to a little bit during development. That slowed down some end game things, but then we felt that was worth it. I do think it was worth it, but I think we could do a better job at guiding new players to the game. I think we all want the game to be successful. We want the game to grow, and in order to do that, we have to make the experience a bit better for new players. The third thing is the game has good retention already. It's only 1 month in, so we only have 1 month of data, but it is above industry averages, which is good. Obviously, our concurrency isn't super high, but that was never really our goal for early access. If it was really high, that'd be great. If it was average, that's fine. That isn't our goal right now. Is to have the game pop off and be number one, because we still have a lot more work to do, more screws to tighten in this game until we want to like bring it to a broader audience, which will also include bringing it to console in a year. Is kind of our goal. So there's a lot of work that has to be done until we start marketing it hardcore like that. But anyway, so there's more room improvement, I think, for the season journey, and this is something um, that is that is something we're going to be constantly working on. Is how's the season? We call it a season's journey. So playing, which will usually be around like 3 months or so, like that, and anyway, so and we'll talk about a little bit of that here too. So, in terms of new players, some things we've talked about in the past already is that well, one thing that we just did, we added this like last week silently, is we added a newbie queue. So players who play the game just bought it and they queue for Greenwood. They get put into a different queue that only has other new players in it. Um, it's not super sophisticated just yet. It doesn't have, there's not like MMR or anything like that just yet. But this is something we're going to improve and grow over time. Is this newbie queue idea? Um, because the biggest challenge for them is they queue into Greenwood and they're playing, probably against all of you guys, and you can get smoked in your first kind of encounter playing the game, which is like not great. So, so anyways, just trying to ease them into the broader game, and as we add more maps, that will also create this gradient of progression, this gradient of difficulty, and to entry level to hardcore. So anyway. Yeah, and then the second thing is we're adding this social hub with Goldbrook. So we already have Goldbrook there, the tutorial space. So we're going to make it so that you can queue into there with a group or just solo if you want. And there'll be other players in there that you could duel. This is a shot here of one of the test dummies that you could fight against, the play with, and just kind of test your rotations and that sort of, or I don't know, rotations is not really a thing in our game that much, but yeah, and test things out in the dummies. It'll also have VoIP and these sort of things, so you can just like hang out and just chat about the game or get tips and stuff with other players. So it's an experiment. We'll see how this goes. It's almost kind of like an MMO feature, but we'll see how that goes. The next thing is the Goblin Pawn Shop. So the Goblin's going to have a new tab in his vendor page where if you die and you lose some items and they weren't looted by another player, then the Goblin will sell them back to you. And so and we could play with this, right? Where maybe entry level players, like if it's common gear or green, that's really the Goblin does this a lot, but if it's like blue or epic, maybe not as much. So we're trying to make it easier for the newer player while still keeping the economy and the end game experience um, uh, more hardcore, I guess, or higher stakes. Um, and then we have a bunch of other surgical ideas, like something we've been playing with is like I have my brother-in-law, he or my yeah, my brother-in-law. He was playing the game a lot, and I met with him when I was in NorCal going for GDC, and he was playing the game a lot, but then he was like kind of low gold, and he was like kind of trying to figure out how to get out of this like gold hole, I guess, or this from being poor. And so something I kind of thought about is like maybe if we have like quests that if the player has low gold, they could do something and try to get them like back on track. So, for newbies as they learn the game. So there's all these like little small ideas that we could do, and then I say entry level map here, but the idea is that we will create more maps in the future, and like we want to have like night versions of the map, which is something we're doing R&D on right now, and those will have higher quality loot and then higher difficulty mobs in them. And so as we add more maps, like I was saying earlier, it creates this more gradient of progression and difficulty so the newer player can start in some of these easier maps, let's say. And then in the future, we do want to add like a karma system, which will something we've been talking about is like if a player's a newbie, they would have like a little icon on them. So when they queue mixed queue, other players could see, oh, this is a new player. and have some context of that they're trying to learn the game. You know, they're not bad; they're just new. Obviously, enemy players won't be able to see that, but your allies might. So that's just kind of an idea we've been thinking about. And then, yeah, other mentoring features. These are all in the future. Like they take a lot of time to build, but it's something we could do in the future, I think, to help help the newer player. Um, and then planned updates for the core player and for everybody really is we're hard at work right now adding new content. And so two biggest things in this upcoming content patch that will be basically season one is the wizard class, which I'm working with Andre on right now. And then this dungeon map. And the dungeon map we've been doing playtests almost like every day with a dungeon map, and it's really interesting uh, um, because I don't know, it just feels like a different game in some ways, just because the tighter corridors and it has multiple, layers and all these things like that. So, anyway, very excited about that. There's going to be better leveling experience with vendors, so we're adding quest lines. We're not sure if this will get into the patch or not, but it's something we're working on right now, which is quest lines for the vendors. So it'll feel like less grindy of just like I buy and sell things from the vendor, and that's how I level them up. So it'll be more engaging to level the vendor. Um, and then fleshed out crafting for rare and epic items. So we're adding more modules or more furnishings to the lodge. There's actually a bigger update for the lodge, just its UI presentation as well, and some of the modules or the furnishings like the transmutation device will be important to craft like rare and epic items. Um, Duo Q, I mentioned this in the previous Meet the Devs. It is something we are adding to the game. We're waiting to put this in till when we do this next season, or the actual season one. So, but it's internally we have it on and it's working, and so that will be cool to have as well. And then other interesting experiences throughout the season is something we're talking about doing. So we've been doing this a little already. Sung has been organizing with the team these arena weekends. And so that's something we can keep doing in the future. And also perhaps other experimental game modes. We actually did like a 5 vs 5 arena internally, which is really interesting. It kind of felt like a battleground. So anyway, we're going to be experimenting with more modes and stuff. This is the time to do it during early access, and it's going to be chaotic and crazy, but that's the whole point. So anyways, these are some of the planned updates for everybody, for the core players. And then wanted to address a few topics before we go into the Q&A that the Sung gave me that were popular from the community. First one is when is the content patch happening? It's our goal, a target date right now is in May, in the middle of May. And so that's what we're working towards right now. We'll see how that goes. So far, internally, with everything, the playtest that we're having, it's feeling pretty good. So, yeah. Anyway, that will be in May. And so, with this patch, we're going to do some marketing. We're going to do Twitch drops actually with the community. So, if you're a creator, sign up to the Legacy Creator Program, and then some other surprises there. And yeah, we'll do a full wipe as well, flush the economy of some of the bugs and craziness that we had this first month. And Duo's Q, as I mentioned, will be in this patch as well. And then the last thing is the deathmatch arena mode. What are the plans for it? So we've been playing with a lot with it, right? And it's mostly just kind of just for fun to do all these little experiments to see, what feels good and that sort of thing. And a lot of you guys have had really great feedback on the deathmatch mode or the arena mode, and so really appreciate that. And so it will become like a bigger mainstay feature at some point in time. Don't know when yet. Could be the May patch, could be in the future, but we'll probably be doing more experiments, more tests in the coming this month, maybe in May and beyond. So anyway, Anyway, those are the main topics in the community, and really wanted to like carve off a lot of time to just be able to answer any of your questions that you have about the game. Um, yeah, Andre?
Yeah, we're ready to take some questions. We have some people with their hand raised. I also wanted to mention because you were saying I mean, yeah, you
Yeah.
basically said that we're gonna have a 2v2 game mode. Next week we will try a 2v2 deathmatch as well. I believe it is next Saturday. So that's like a little experiment, see how that feels. Hello,
Hey
sir.
guys.
How's it going?
Yo.
Hey, so I'm trying to get a better understanding of your end game direction for the game and comparing it to games like V Rising, where the progression path is pretty linear and kind of static with, variables in between, or like Dark and Darker, where the end game has multiple maps with higher difficulty bosses. Is your goal right now for the end game to be that new map, where in the current map that you have, it's just kind of fights around the boss? I know you touched on that last dev meeting where you plan to change that, but in more of the games, it just seems like a congregation point around the boss, and there's not really much else other than grinding quests or the reputation vendors and just organic interaction in the world. But can you elaborate on what you see for the future there?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, that's something I didn't talk about as Morthog yet. So we're working. Actually, I have a meeting right after this to talk about about that this specific topic. But so Morthog is another experiment, right? Or as a boss encounter is another experiment. I love the idea. I think what our combat system in the game it has a lot of potential to do these scripted boss encounters, and so uh, and Morthog I think is a good first rep at that. We're going to improve the encounter and make it a bit more sophisticated and change the room a little bit, I believe, in a future patch, like probably in the May patch. And then, kind of our philosophy on the boss, we can go multiple ways, right? One could be, well, you fight the boss and then, yeah, someone says in chat, you kill the boss and then you get extract in the room. Maybe you got to do it quickly, so you got to loot him and get out. So there's some tension there. Or it could be essentially a siphoned off experiment. Like you could just do an instance where you need a key and you queue for the Morthog encounter. If we just wanted to say, well, screw it, why does it have to be in the zone? It could just be somewhere else. Or we can go more hardcore with it and just say Morthog is intended so that other players can gank you while fighting him, and he's kind of designed for that, or he roams around the zone, let's say. So I think we're going to play with a lot of these different ideas in the future. I don't have anything to share just yet on what we're going to do with Morthog's room and encounter just yet, but it's a good question for the community to feel like to see how we feel about the bosses and what people would like to see. I kind of think a lot of these different experiences, like some being roaming bosses, some like a world boss or something, and some being like a more scripted encounter that has a door that closes and the player has a chance to do it, and it's within the zone. I think all these things are interesting, so we'll probably play a lot with that. In terms of like what is the end game vision supposed to be in like a loop, um, I think we will, as we introduce more and more like more zones to the game. I do think having a seasonal journey where players go from, say, a future map that we're working on too is the farm map, right? And the farm is supposed to be more of the entry level map. And so if you go from farm day to maybe farm night to Greenwood day to Greenwood night, and then you go into the dungeon or some other different modes at the end of the game, could be interesting. But it's hard to say because really this is what early access is for, is to kind of test these ideas to see what kind of feels good with the game. The game is like its own thing now, and it's hard to kind of like master plan or predict these things out. But I think what we'll probably do is just add more to content to the game and kind of see how it organically just just ends up. But that's kind of the idea, is that you would graduate to some maps, but we don't want to make it to where it's just like I will never queue Greenwood after I get to like the dungeon or something like that, right? That is like a failure, I feel like, if that's the case. But you should still So there should be some graduation, but not like hardcore. Like you just don't queue the other maps. Like that shouldn't be the case. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't really answer your question exactly, but that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
I appreciate the answer, and maybe just a suggestion from me would be like if you're doing a
Yeah.
night version of the map, some of the like bigger elite mobs turn into like mini bosses that have more rare loot or like higher tier loot in the night version, where they actually have like a few more mechanics or something to make it better, kind of like mini ogres out in the world or something to that extent that kind of separates the constant team fight of like 3v3v3 at Morthog, and the winner basically takes the boss type of content.
Right. No, I like that
Or they're
idea.
sitting there getting ratted by Timmys with no gear.
Yeah, I just actually I've been busy, but I killed Morthog with some folks in the office the other day, and we had like PvP fights. It was like just like a gauntlet of PvP up to get to the boss, which was kind of fun to be honest, but also just like I could tell like that's where the meta and where the game is kind of turning into for the end game player. And then we did kill the boss, and then after that, a team was waiting there, and then we fought them, and then we killed them, and so it was a fun like player story that happened there. So there is something cool there, but I do agree like everyone just camping at Morthog at the end game is not really intended. Or but anyway.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks for the question.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, sorry.
I
I'll try to answer questions quicker so there's more of them.
I mean, just whatever you think is appropriate. I've got 1 to 11 now. Oh, 1 to more than 11, 13.
Okay, let's do one. Because I always feel bad if that was the person who raised their hand first.
You want to do number 1? All right.
Yeah, go.
Number 1. I can't see your name, so I don't know who I'm inviting on stage. So sorry
The
about
Bronze
that.
Spirits.
Yeah.
How's it going, guys?
Yeah,
Okay.
how's it going?
Hey, so I had a quick question. You kind of covered it with the quest line with the vendors. But I was wondering if you guys thought of maybe doing like a giant weekly quest to retain players on a weekly basis.
Mm.
So like maybe like a larger kill, 200 players or kill 500 skeletons, something like on that scale of, and a bigger rep reward for that.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot. We've been talking about so a good way to think about the architecture and design of the game could be there are things that reset or change. There's something you look forward to multiple times per day. That the example of that in the game right now is the quest board. So the quest board will reset. I think it's like every 3 hours or so. So that's something that as you're playing, it feels like things are changing. There's like things to look forward to, like the quest are resetting. Okay, I'll do those, and then I'll log off. Right, like it creates this like engagement. There's something to do. And weekly, the only weekly thing we have right now is the ossuary. The ossuary resets each week. It was kind of my idea of like doing in WoW, the game that I worked on before this, there was a lot of weekly resets sort of things. Like you resets and then you could buy like your arena gear, and there's like your ratings got set and all these standings and stuff like that. So it was cool to have like a weekly anticipation thing. And so the ossuary right now is it's just a stub right now. It will be improved and more interesting gameplay added to it later on. May interact with the arena system in some way, right? So that was kind of current idea and a weekly idea. But yeah, I agree. Like if we could add some weekly quests as well, that'd be interesting. A weekly quest could be to kill like 3 elites or Morthog or some other mini boss, right? So that's another interesting idea. But I agree, that's a good idea to add more weekly cadence things. So the idea is to have multiple times per day, daily, weekly, and maybe seasonal. And so I've talked about some seasonal unlocks in the past, which would be like could be titles or achievements or some cosmetic item for completionist, like if you complete the campaign for that season, right? But anyway, yeah, good idea.
The last thing I wanted to add to that is, if that is like a future idea, can we have it where and it's just thinking where we can change the vendor, because it does feel bad currently. Like if you buy like a mystery favor and you get it for somebody that you don't need the rep for anymore, which we can use in the trade system in the Discord, which is awesome. However, but it does feel bad to grab that.
Got it. I will mention that to the item progression designers as well. That's good. That's a good point.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
That's it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the question. And yeah, there was one more thing we were thinking about, and this is not a promise. This is just like one idea we were kind of floating around, was sort of a weekly quest that, like Chris said, sends you to kill the ogre, and then only once a week you would get some item that you could convert into like a special piece of gear, kind of like how tier sets worked in WoW. It was just the ideas we're throwing around for now, but yeah. All right, let's add. I'm gonna pick one, okay?
Go ahead. Yeah, it's Andre's choice.
I'm gonna pick our VIP. It's benefits. Mr. Growl Ron has been invited. And if you guys have questions in chat, I can answer in chat as well while Chris is answering.
I did. I did.
All
right.
Okay,
I did for
all
you.
right. Okay. So his question was, can you define what the wipe will include and what it won't?
Yeah, it's a good question. We haven't completely 100% decided just yet, but generally it'll be all your stash and character progression on the character. Most things will be wiped. Right now, there's not a lot of persistent progression that transcends a wipe. In the future, if we had like, oh, you unlock an achievement or cosmetics or something like that, those will remain. In the future, we'll also have more of a sophisticated character customization, like you can customize your hair and all these things like that. The characters we wouldn't wipe. We just reduce them back down to level 1, which we may do for this wipe too. We may keep the characters and just wipe their traits and level and all that sort of thing. But basically, yeah, we're gonna wipe most things.
All right, there it is. Everything gets wiped. Yeah, I'm answering questions in chat meanwhile. This is working perfectly. We're covering more ground. All right, I'll pick someone else. Hopefully this time, pick someone. The correct person is Mr. G. I can't read your names, so I just see the first letter. Hello.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Hey, my question is the age-old question of, are we going to balance the progression of the game around the average gamer who only has 2 to 3 hours to play a day, or the hardcore gamer who can play 24/7 all day every day? And with that being like the vendors, and if we do lower the vendor progression requirement, are we going to add any sort of stretch goals for the players that want to play your game 24/7 and who want more than just PvP, like that really enjoy that sense of progression every time they log on?
Yeah, good question. So we have to take in consideration all these types of players. The entry level player who is just learning the game, the player who is casual, only has like maybe an hour, what they call the dad gamer, I guess, who has like an hour or something to play each night, and then the ones who just will poop sock the game and just like get all the vendors leveled up in the first week, which there were some players like that. So yes, I think you basically kind of said, I think, what you would do, which is you tune, and we don't want like the vendors to be something that you gotta like that are super pivotal, and you want to like, you don't level them to if you don't level them to like level 5 or 7 or something in the first like 2 weeks, then you're gonna miss out on something. So they're not supposed to be that pivotal, but it is so that is not supposed to be like something for like the hardcore gamer. either to like only have access to is like a max level, all the max level vendors. So I think for the hardcore player, or the player who's playing a lot, one of our statistics is something like 10% of the players play the game like over like hundreds of hours. And so for that player, a system like maybe the arena or other different modes that are more PvP focused or something could maybe be more interesting for them. Or there could be more we're going to add like more of a prestige sort of system. So you could like level up your character after level 20, and it will, there'll be something interesting there. So there's some systems there we'll add for that player. And then for the average player, yeah, we do want to tune the game to be enjoyable and to have a interesting progression path for someone who only plays like say 4 hours a week or something like that. But it also really just depends on what like the season length is. If the season length is 3 months, right? Like I don't think the game has 3 months of content just yet, but that will be kind of like the goal of like if the game has 3 months of content, then I think for the average player, if they unlock all the vendors or they max them up at month 2, and there's like 1 month with them all at max level, it seems like reasonable to me. Again, this is going to be something that we'll have to test to kind of feel out. It's really hard to kind of just theory craft that one, but anyway. Again, sorry, there's not really like a set answer. It's just like a lot of philosophical thinking about that.
All right, guys, thanks. I know personally myself, I would love to see some sort of transcend system where like you reward players for playing season to season, and then like in season 10 we can say, hey, look, I've got this skin that I earned in season 1. I've been around forever, my man.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that idea. Yeah. Cool.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. All right, we got. Do you want to pick one, Chris, or should I pick someone?
Go for it. You do.
1, 2.
It's 5. 5, yeah, 5.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah.
I had a quick question. You probably won't answer it to the fullest because it's a question in nature, but are you guys wondering or I'm more so wondering if you guys are adding like a blink ability or like a frost nova to mage or some type of movement or like CC?
Good question. Yes on both of those actually. The wizard's evade is kind of cheap. If you think about the rogue one, the rogue's evade, it's shorter evades, but it's cheaper, right? So the wizard actually has a similar design where his evades are cheaper, and the first evade is kind of like a normal evade. The second evade, he's invisible while he evades, so you don't know where he's going. So kind of like the inspiration here is like Pikachu from Smash Brothers. And then the third evade, he has like lingering invisibility for like a short amount of time, like a second or so. And so the wizard's kind of slippery and like master evasion kind of thing. And so then he can like power up and light himself up and do a bunch of damage. So he has this glass cannon slippery sort of gameplay. And then as for Frost Nova, he has 2 weapons. He has the Ember Staff, which is fire damage, and then he has a second weapon, which is called the Frost Orb. The Frost Orb kind of feels like the Shatter Mage from WoW a little bit. It has Frost Nova. It has like like a Frost or a Frostbolt kind of gameplay, like. So yeah, he does have a Frost Nova-ish kind of ability and gameplay, but yeah.
Sweet, thank you.
Yep.
Have a great day.
You too, friend. You got the full answer. People are asking.
Yeah, there's some crazier things that we haven't mentioned,
but
we'll keep to ourselves for now.
The crazy stuff is. is gonna be a surprise. Everyone's asking for wizard
Yeah.
nerfs already. No one's even seen it.
Don't.
It's
So
begun.
our vision with the classes, like every class should have crazy things, but then it's somehow like everybody has crazy things, so everything should feel crazy.
Yeah.
If they
Crazy
feel that,
in
if
their own way.
every class feel like they need nerfs in some way, then we know we're doing our job. But yeah.
And apparently the follow-up question is, when is the wizard nerf? That's the next question. All right, I'm gonna invite Mr. Dice Host, professional priest. Hello.
Hey, Chris. Can you guys hear me?
Yo.
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so I know GDC was last week and Chris and Siong were a part of that. I was wondering if there's anything outside of the NDA that you guys could share with us on how that went.
Oh yeah, good question. Yeah, so GDC was last week. Someone mentioned I look tired. Maybe that's why. I don't like traveling. I don't like having long meetings to talk to non-gamers. So anyway, it was good. It was good. A lot of meetings that lead to more meetings, basically, which is like normal. But we talked to many different investors and publishers about the game. A lot of people had really great things to say. So we're doing all these follow-ups now. Kind of the goal perhaps could be to get a publisher. I mentioned like we want to go to console, and so we talked with Microsoft and Sony and a bunch of others. So once we have more updates, like something more concrete, we'll share it with all you guys. But yeah, it was just a lot of talk about the game and the vision and things that we've talked about Amita does a few times. So
Okay, cool. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for the question. All right, we got. Who do we invite? I'm gonna invite this person. I like their avatar. It's a little mushroom. Mr. I.
Hello,
It's your
it's
name.
Toad.
Oh, it
Toad.
is. You're right.
I like the icon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question. So, I was wondering, you're talking about duo queue in a game that has a player base which is still relatively low. I'm wondering, how confident are you guys with the data you have that you won't split the player base in one too many section and make it so that there's less, players in 3v3s or in 1v1s? And after that question, I was wondering also, as a priest player, are we gonna ever stop playing Spark Roulette when we're priest against priest, and just wondering if we're gonna get sped up or stunned?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, this is kind of also why we want to have it in the May patch when we do the season reset, because it's impossible to know the exact numbers or projections or something like that. But our assumption is that when we do a season reset, more players will come back, and the concurrency would be higher at that point. And so the duo queue then makes a lot more sense. We'll have to monitor and see how things go in terms of like how all the queues get split. We'll have more maps as well, and so we have to take that into consideration too. A good thing about our game is that you don't need like 24 people to start a match or whatever number. You could go into Greenwood day or night or whatever map that we have, these larger open world ones, just with a smaller group, and then we backfill into that map over time. So, and the player generally just wants to go and kill different creatures or these sort of things. So, um, most of all of our sessions generally at some point in time will peak at the max capacity in there, but anyway, yeah, it's a good point and something that we will just have to evaluate and kind of see how that goes. One option could be we just kind of at some point in time you can queue duos, some point in time you queue trios, or we switch it to different maps. Like you can queue duos in this map and not in that one for now to concentrate the queues if that really becomes an issue. But so we have some knobs there to address that. And then the second question about Holy Sparks roulette. Yeah, the Holy Sparks was something that I designed and something that we're going to iterate on and polish in the next patch. I think the class. Someone asked like how we feel about the state of the classes. Feel like the state of the class is pretty good right now. There's still some bugs. There's some issues with the priest of a lot of her gear. Some of her gear doesn't function correctly. Some of the traits. So there's a bunch of things to improve. All over the place, but we've kind of like ran our limit of like just number changes that we can do in these hot fixes. I mean, there may be more that we will do, but uh, we're redoing some traits, we're adding new ones, we're changing gear perks, we're adding new abilities right now. There's a huge list that we're going through of improvements and things that we want to do. Um, if you joined the previous Meet the Devs, I kind of talked about the state of each class and kind of longer term goals with each of them, which is still pretty consistent to today. So things like, for example, the warrior having his different weapons feel more exaggerated differences between them and more of decision making between the mace and shield versus the death ball, etc. So there's a lot of stuff we're working on, but unfortunately, it's not stuff you can really like that is really great in a hot fix. It makes more sense when it's a full content patch. In the future, Meet the Devs, we'll start to talk about some of these changes that we're going to do because it will be important to hear your feedback and get people to play test it as well. So one other goal that we want to have for this next patch before the May patch is to have a PTR so people can play test some stuff and so look out for that. We'll announce that at some point.
All right. So it's not something that will be as easy as adding a tint, like it's green, it's ally, it's red, it's enemy.
Oh, that is something we do have listed out as something we do want to change. That probably we wouldn't hotfix, but yeah, something we would do in the patch. Yeah, Sung's in the chat. Maybe he could write that one down.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, I'm gonna be the voice of the chat. Chat is asking if we have an estimation on ETA for this next patch. Not the May patch, but is there gonna be like a balancing patch or a tuning patch before that? And if so, do we have like a rough estimate for that?
Yeah, generally there's no like so if we do a patch that was like critical bug fixes or class tuning, it'd be like on a 2-week cadence. So if we do anything, it'll probably be in like a week or two. But right now the team is mostly kind of focused on this next content patch. It's always like this, like, do we want to address things on live versus like the content patch? And for a while, we've been focusing a lot on just live fixes because there were some critical things that were just like impeding the experience. But so mostly we're gonna like lean on towards just focusing on this content patch versus live fixes. But we'll continue to monitor things. If there's things that you feel like are super critical, let Sung and us know like in Discord, and we'll take a look at that.
Right.
I know some of the pain points right now, like the meta is shifting as well, which has been interesting. I feel like hunters now are seen as stronger. Part of this is with some of the damage gems, I think, with the Sentinel Strike after people have been experimenting with that after the tuning on the Cyclone. So there's a lot of evolving things which you would expect in the meta right now. So yeah. So
All right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's good. So usually every like 2 weeks ish, we're doing like these balance patches. But like Chris is saying, we're kind of all hands on deck with this May patch, where there's a lot of new content, including like the new class and the map and a bunch of changes to the current classes. So we're trying. Give me a number 1 to 17, Chris.
12.
You cut out. You say 1?
Oh, 12.
Oh my god, 12. All right. 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. Oh. It's Mr. T again. Hello.
I got invited twice. That's awesome. Sorry, guys.
RNG.
No, I had a very, very quick question. I just wanted to know, for console, are you guys planning on doing both or just one, or have you guys not decided on that yet?
We haven't decided on it just yet. for developers, I think it's easier to build on PlayStation than it is Xbox, but it just all depends, like how things go. Uh, I don't think there's any reason these days. The console developers like Sony and Microsoft, they're fine. They want you to have it on both platforms. Or at least Microsoft's very much like that these days. So it's unlikely that it would be an exclusive, but it's hard to say. It really just depends on like how our conversations with each of the different studios or companies go.
Okay, awesome. I just get that question all the time, so I just wanted to get a clarification. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. No problem.
All right, thanks for the question. 1 to 16 now.
6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hello. Hello, question mark? Oh, this person's on the
You can't see
phone,
their
I think.
you can't see their name.
I can't see anyone's name,
the phone.
so that's why I just say hi.
Oh. Here, let me just bring someone up. I'll just randomly choose.
You pick. I'll answer chat. Teamwork.
All right. Bringing Aragorn up.
Oh shit, what's up?
Melka 2. Yeah, what up?
Hey, so you guys already talked about the wizard a little bit. I just had 2 questions.
Yeah.
Will they have a polymorph, and can I shatter combo people? If I can, I will play this game for the rest of my life.
They don't have any polymorph right now. Actually, I'm really nervous about doing like CC like that. That's like, but I don't know. We'll see. And then shatter combo, they have something similar to that. Yeah, that's all I'll say right now.
Oh, that's great. Perfect. Sweet. Thank you, guys.
No problem. Good question. That was a fast one. All right. Let's see.
It
How
was
much do I
fast
have time
because
for?
your answer was fast.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
just said
those are
kinda.
the easy ones. Anything can change, right? I wouldn't. Yeah, nothing's forever. But yeah. All right. Let's see. I'll bring up another person. Savage.
Hello. Oh, hey.
Yo.
First, just wanted to say thanks for Legion PvP. It was the greatest time in WoW, the whole 14 years I played. But I just had a question on if you guys had a time frame on when we could expect to be playing as other races like orcs or the like, and how long you think we gotta wait till that might happen. Also, monk or druid class possibly ever in the future.
Yeah, so playing as other races, it's something we talk about a lot. I think that there's just some production challenges of adding new races. We have to choose, because a new race could be as expensive to as it is to make just a new class, depending on how we do it. Like, but so it's something that we have to budget out and think about. But it is something we definitely do want to do. We were just talking about it last week a little bit. There's plans in place of building it over time, but I have nothing really to announce just yet. And then in terms of Druid and Monk, yeah, those are both classes I've worked on in the past, on WoW. And actually, I was a Druid main and then a Monk main after we added the Monk. But so those classes are those classes are very close to me. Yeah, I feel like it's only a matter of time, and we experiment some of those classes like that, but nothing to announce just yet.
Okay, awesome. It's just good to know that that's something that we can look forward to. Again, appreciate the game, having a great time. Look forward to seeing what we get in the future.
Awesome, thanks, man. All right, let's see. Maybe we have room for 2 more or so. These have been faster questions for me.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andre. You choose. Just
I choose.
pick anyone you want.
It is difficult to choose, huh? I feel bad when I pick. I can't pick everyone. Boom. What if we just invite everybody at the same time? Or just rapid fire? You have like 5 seconds per question. Mr. Necrotic, I can see your name. You are muted though, sir. See, this is why you should never let me pick. This is just not. This is not the play.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Hello?
Yeah, no, we can hear you.
Ah, perfect. All right. Nice to see you guys again. I was able to talk to you on the last one. Glad to see I'm able to do it again. I just have a question in regards to how combat is now. You said in the past that no class is supposed to be a hard counter to another, and I guess what I would like to ask is, are classes going to be able to do everything that other classes can do in terms of like attacks? Like, will Rogue get a technical attack, or things along those lines? Like dodge attacks and technical attacks and unstoppables and unblockables. Will other classes be able to do that in the future, or do you feel that that's within the design you have for every class to be able to do, or these things are going to be kind of isolated to certain classes for the sake of balance?
Yeah, good question. So it's not intended that classes like hard counter another class in terms of like you see this class, you're like, well, I might as well just like give up, you know? That is not intended. It is in a class-based game like ours that has every class just plays very differently, and some are ranged, some are melee. It's almost impossible not for them to have some slight advantages against each other, against other different classes, especially if you're talking about in solos. When it comes to like say 3 versus 3 or like a group composition, it's actually a lot easier to balance, and you're going to get a lot more consistent kind of a better experience there in theory than solos. That said, I do feel like the game is like pretty decent balance in solos right now. It's very hard to balance a game like ours in solo. So I would, that's not to say that I feel like or we feel that balance is like great in solos right now, or even in squads generally, for every class and every situation. Some of the things that we do want to address in the next content patch is like the range versus especially the sword rogue or rogue in general. I think that's a challenge, not so much of like the end game or like when players figure out how to play the class, when they unlock all the different traits and all the different gear choices and that sort of thing when they learn to play the class. Actually, I think at endgame at that point, it's actually pretty good. But I think in the very beginning of the game, when you're starting to learn it, just attacking as a sword rogue, attacking a hunter with swords, staggering her, it's just it's hard for the hunter to figure out how to deal with that in the beginning. So I think that's more of one of our bigger challenges is like for new players fighting each other in solo queue. You get the experience is it takes a while for the range classes to understand how to play against the melee, and then also they don't quite have all the tools, I would say, just yet. To fight them, especially at that low end. So it's something that we will address over time, or we will begin to address in the May patch. For the warrior, he's supposed to be very scary up, like when you're fighting him one-on-one, like in melee, right? So he's supposed to have high damage, have high survivability, and to counter the warrior is supposed to be you do kind of kite him, right? And the hunter's like pretty good at doing this with the warrior, I think. Priest perhaps too, but I think maybe too much. So there's something else that we're thinking about, and how to make it so the warrior has more options to get back into like engagement with ranged, and everyone's experience will be different because everyone's skill level is different, everyone's way they play their class is different, and whether it's solo or duo, so it's all very contextual. But we know a lot, we have pretty good we've been reading through your feedback, and we play the game a lot, and so we have a pretty good, I think, grasp on some of the challenges of different classes. And probably the next meet of devs, we could talk more in depth with the classes and share some of our changes and ideas that we're going to do. But Gosh, I feel like I've just been rambling here, but the question was, the original question was like how, if there was supposed to be hard counters and how we're going to deal with that. No, it's not supposed to be hard counters, but it's supposed to be some slight advantages, and players can also gear themselves differently to counter the classes that they feel like have an edge on them, right? For example, if like you are a warrior and you just get hit with nature damage a lot, perhaps you could slot some nature resistance or slot your abilities to counter, make that matchup a little less painful. And so that's another way we're going to use the traits and the other different alternate abilities to kind of let you gear your character and customize them to help you with issues that you have with some of the other matchups or whatnot. So anyway, I think that's my long answer to that question.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And then what was the other? There was another part that too, right?
Oh.
Or
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I'm also tired. I didn't get to sleep yet. I stayed up for this. So, the question is that like, I wanted to know if basically in like fighting game terms, you have lights and heavies and whatnot, and I was
yeah.
originally asking if all the classes would get to get to have these tools in their arsenal to provide some counterplay to what's going on. Like if you have a warrior using like an unblockable or something like that, maybe there's a technical that would interrupt or have a way of dealing with that. Basically, I was asking if there's a way, if not a way, but in the future, will there be ways of counterplaying with all classes depending on what your opponent is doing?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we have like this, the core combat has something we call the combat triangle, which is like, damage, block, and then there's a way to counter block, which is like a technical that the warrior has, etc. And some of the other classes have that. And so we're gonna like play with that more and emphasize that more as we flesh out the game and add more mechanics and stuff like that. I would say it's hard to say right now what we were going to do in the next patch, but we do want to give more classes more technicals and flesh their kits out more. And so a lot of the weapons, for a lot of them, just don't have sprint attacks, or they don't have jump attacks, or they don't have technicals, or they don't have an evade attack, etc. So we're going to be adding those to all the weapons over time, and that will make the kits and gameplay feel a lot more dynamic and interesting. So yes, to answer your question, yeah, I think trying to make the game have this combat triangle like you're talking about here is really important.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you for the question. I think that was it, because I know, Chris, you have a meeting. You just said a meeting about Morthog, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're at the hour now. All right, awesome. Thank you everyone for your questions. We'll be back again soon, and at that point in time, perhaps we could talk more about some of the concrete changes that we're going to add in the next patch. And once again, appreciate everyone's support and thanks for playing the game. It's been really helpful for us developing it, and we look forward to you guys checking out the new content soon. So
thanks a lot. And one last thing I just wanted to add, Song messaged me and he said the Legacy Creator Program application is due tomorrow, and Song's gonna reach out to people who are accepted. So he's gonna reach out during the first week of April, actually. So yeah, fill that in, and that's it. Have a beautiful rest of the week.
awesome. All right, bye-bye. Thanks everybody.
Bye.